Today, on Issue at Hand. Have you seen Rogue One yet? Wait, no spoilers. We filmed this before it came out. Okay, but was it good? Welcome to Issue at Hand, Polygon's series about the galaxy of comics out there. I'm your host, Susana Polo, and today we're talking about Star Wars. In 1975, Stan Lee was approached by a PR guy who was interested in getting Marvel Comics to make a tie-in book for an upcoming sci-fi film from a little company called Lucasfilm. He turned it down.
I am so fired.
Stan Lee refused to consider Lucasfilm's offer until Star Wars had completed filming, but he eventually agreed, on the condition that Marvel wouldn't have to pay a dime for the license. I mean, after all, he was doing them a favor by spreading the word about a movie that was almost certainly going to flop.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference.
Star Wars #1 sold more than 1 million copies, 4 times that of Marvel's second most successful comic of the time. In fact, the success of the Star Wars series is credited with saving Marvel Comics from financial ruin. Some have even credited it with saving the whole American comic book industry from decline by showing how lucrative licensed comic adaptations could be. In between novelizing the films, the Star Wars series told original stories set in the Star Wars universe, with a couple of mandates from Lucasfilm, of course. It ran for nearly 10 years, which is 3 longer than it took to produce and release the original Star Wars trilogy itself. But nothing lasts forever, and in 1987, Marvel published its last comic set in the Star Wars universe for nearly 30 years. Star Wars Ewoks #14. That's about when something explosive happened. Not for comics, but for Star Wars. 8 years after Return of the Jedi hit theaters, Timothy Zahn wrote a book called Heir to the Empire. And around the same time, a 5-year-old company called Dark Horse Comics won the license from Marvel to make Star Wars comics, and used it to produce Star Wars: Dark Empire. It was the beginning of a huge resurgence in the expanded universe of Star Wars tie-in media. Dark Horse would be the comic book home of Star Wars for a quarter of a century.
We're home.
Producing original stories within the Star Wars universe as well as straight adaptations. And it was still producing Star Wars comics, including some really interesting ideas like The Star Wars, an adaptation of George Lucas's first draft script for A New Hope, when the Walt Disney Company acquired Lucasfilm in 2014. The sad news is that the writing was on the wall from then on out. Disney had acquired Marvel Comics 5 years previously. It was only a matter of time before Dark Horse's license ran out, and when it did run out, Star Wars comics would be moving back to Marvel. The good news is that Marvel's current crop of completely canonical original stories written by great talent and set in the Star Wars universe are really, really good. Marvel's modern Star Wars line spans the Star Wars timeline from the Clone Wars to just before The Force Awakens. Last year's Shattered Empire tells the story of the immediate aftermath of the Battle of Endor through the eyes of 2 rebel soldiers, Poe Dameron's mom and dad. And the current Poe Dameron ongoing series is giving us insight into the lives of X-Wing strike teams and ex-stormtroopers alike as it follows Poe's journey to find Lor San Tekka.
Who is...
He's that old dude who's in The Force Awakens for like 3 seconds, obviously, Tara. Marvel is also producing stories that tie into the cartoon show Rebels, but the majority of its Star Wars comics actually take place smack in the middle of the original trilogy. Limited series have focused on adventures with individual characters in the aftermath of New Hope, and the main Star Wars title saw Luke Skywalker confronting the idea that he might be the last Jedi in the universe when all he knows how to do is sort of fight a floating ball. It also features Obi-Wan Kenobi's journals from his time on Tatooine and Princess Leia meeting Han Solo's estranged wife, who I'm really hoping will show up in the Han Solo movie. But what I really want to talk about here is Kieran Gillen and Salvador Larroca's Darth Vader. Darth Vader runs concurrently with the events of Star Wars, often crossing over or just missing a crossover by minutes. And in its pages you'll find scenes you've always wanted to see, like the moment Anakin Skywalker realizes that he has a living son. Darth Vader also introduces Dr. Aphra, whose popularity recently won her her own spin-off series. She's a rogue archaeologist who specializes in recovering terrible ancient weapon systems from locked-up vaults. When Vader finds her, she's stealing an old protocol droid matrix that belongs to 000, the master of etiquette, customs, translation, and torture. She needs 000 to wake up BT-1, a specialized assassin droid designed to be indistinguishable from a run-of-the-mill astromech. Vader enlists Aphra and her droids to his cause. And yes, that means that there's a comic about Darth Vader murdering his way across the galaxy with evil C-3PO and R2-D2. What are you waiting for? Get out of here and go buy the comic. Here's some money. Go see a Star Wars. Marvel's modern Star Wars stories are overseen by the Lucasfilm Story Group, so they're just as canonical as the movies. Even better, Star Wars doesn't come out once a year now. It comes out every month. Next time on Issue at Hand.
Star Wars.
Oh no, I'm not falling for that trap again. But what I really want to talk about here is Kieran Gillen and Salvador Larroca. No, I can't pronounce that correctly. So it was the beginning of a huge rebirth in the expanded universe of Star Wars. Huge rebirth? Won the license from Marvel to make Star Wars comics and used it to... He's the old dude in Force... who's in...